Welcome to the Triathlon Training Explained show, powered by Training Peaks. And this week, we're going to be looking at how to split up your weekly training load.
Well, training for 3 different disciplines is always going to be a challenge, and one that even the pros have to learn how to manage. And as an age grouper, you're probably continually trying to find that balance between your work, your family life, and training. And let's be honest, there are never going to be enough hours in the day, so you've got to learn how to plan and prioritise.
Well, along with our own experiences and the help from some top-level coaches, we're going to be giving you a guide on how to break up your weekly training load to best suit your needs.
Before we go into the actual breakdown, it's important to set long and short-term goals and then work out which is your weaker of the 3 sports and start to focus on what area it is within that you want to improve. And if you're not quite sure which is the weaker discipline, then you can have a look at some of your past results and compare those to other competitors, and that'll give you a fairly good idea.
Well, next, be realistic with how many hours you can dedicate to training per week. And with that, take into account the amount of travel time, changing time and whatnot. And don't be over ambitious with this, because you're more likely to achieve your targets if you are realistic. And take a step back, look at the bigger picture, perhaps write a planner so you can work out the available time in your weekly schedule.
Well, we can't cover everyone's individual scenario, so let's start by saying that this is an overall guide which you can then base your plan from. And as an age group athlete, you'll be juggling work and family life. So we'd recommend trying to train between 8 and 12 hours, which should be adequate amount of training for most distances of triathlon. And I know that can sometimes seem quite a lot, and you might not always be able to manage that many hours in a week. But as long as you do make sure all the training you do is very much based on quality.
Well, if we keep things simple and we work on something like a 10-hour training week, we should be looking at around 8 to 9 sessions per week, and that means around 3 per discipline, but obviously it varies in duration. So firstly, let's look at a balanced athlete, and by that I mean an athlete that's fairly evenly matched across all 3 disciplines. So for the swimming, I'd recommend 3 hours of swimming per week, broken across 3 swims, so an hour each. Cycling, 5 hours of cycling per week, again broken across 3 rides, perhaps 2 shorter rides during the week and then 1 longer ride on a weekend or when you have more time. And then for the running, 2 hours per week across 2 or 3 sessions.
Okay, well that's the ideal, but how about if an athlete has weakness in one of the disciplines? Let's start with the swim weak athlete, which probably the majority of people can relate to. For that, you want to try and increase your swimming a little bit, so up to 4 hours. And now you could do this as 4 lots of 1-hour sessions, or keep it to your 3 sessions and then make them an hour and 20 long. And then reduce the bike to 4 hours, but still with 3 sessions, so split it up how you feel it works for you, and then keep your run at 2 hours over 3 sessions.
Then for the bike week athletes, we should be looking at around 2 hours of swimming per week, and you can do this across 2 or 3 swim sessions per week, around 45 to 60 minutes each. And then we're going to up the cycling a bit now, so we're doing around 6 hours per week across 3 rides, and then keeping to 2 hours of running across 2 or 3 runs.
Finally, the run week athlete. So stick to roughly 3 hours of swimming, 5 hours of biking, and 2 hours of running, which admittedly isn't actually an increase in duration, but that's because of the impact from running. So you do need to build it up gradually. And the best way to do this to improve your running is to stick with the 2 hours, but maybe make it more sessions. So aim to do 4 or 5 in your week.
Well, of course, this is just an example, and every athlete's needs will be different. And then, of course, there's the variables that will determine an athlete's training schedule and even the sessions that are doing day in, day out. And that comes down to things like your current fitness level and your skill level.
It does. Well, a lot of us dream of being able to train full time, and we look at the pros with envy, but they still have to plan and manage their time for optimum performance. And I mean, it is their livelihood after all.
Well, it is the coach that actually plays a big part in that. So we've actually gone and chatted to a couple of experts in this area that coach some of the most successful pros out there. Right, first up we've got Reece Davies, British triathlon coach and coach to Vicky Holland, bronze at the Rio Olympic Games. So Reece, how would you split your training throughout the week, day by day?
So for us, with kind of an ITU elite athlete, like all triathletes, kind of consistency is really important. And to do that, it's making sure you get that balance right of your intense training days, your long kind of aerobic days, and then your recovery days. So the way that we'd split it is a Monday would be what I would call kind of an aerobic recovery day. So it's not a full recovery day. There's still 4, maybe 5 hours of training in there, but it would be more low level, your 4, your 5 out of 10 worth of effort. And it's an opportunity to kind of maintain that aerobic work, but actually you're probably recovering a bit from the previous weekend's worth of work. From there, we'd go into a Tuesday day, which is what I would term our intensity day. So we might have a real specific swim session. It would be race specific. It would be short, sharp, quite intense on the guys. And then we'd go into again, an intense track session. So that would be 3 to 5Ks worth of work for us at maybe faster than 3K pace. It would depend on where we are in the year, but there'll be times when they'll be getting faster than 3K pace. So it really kind of really hurts the guys quite a lot. So there's not too much volume in there, but it's what I'd term a real intensity day. From there, on a Wednesday, we'd go into what I'd term more a long aerobic day. So we'd have a long swim. There might be over 5K, maybe up to 6Ks worth of swimming, into 40 minutes, up to 60 minutes worth of running, followed by, again, a 3 to 4 hour ride. So maybe up to 6 hours worth of training in there and real long aerobic work. Not necessarily too intense, but long aerobic work. And then from there we go to a Thursday, which would be, again, what I'd term more of an intensity day. It would be key bike session, race specific, a bit of a speed swim, and then a bit more of a relaxed aerobic run. So then Thursday to Friday would be more like our recovery day. The guys will do a swim. It might be an intense swim, but there's only a swim in it, and it's also at 10:30 in the morning, so they have a good lie-in. They'll go and do the swim late morning, and then they have the rest of the day off. So just a bit of an opportunity for them to recover before going into Saturday, which is one of our key run sessions Saturday morning. So we're just looking to protect that with the Friday afternoon off. And then Saturday ends up being an aerobic ride. It might be up to 3.5 hours. So Saturday kind of is a bit of a mixture of intensity with aerobic. But what a key focus is just making sure that Saturday morning is protected. And then Sunday is another one of our long aerobic days. So it tends to be a longer aerobic ride in the morning, followed by a longer run in the evening.
Awesome. So it is really well planned and calculated. Are you actually swim, biking and running every day?
So no, absolutely not. The way it would tend to work is that they'd probably swim 5 times a week, run 6 or 7 times a week, but that might be with 2 runs in a day. So often people will have a day off. Like I said, Friday they won't necessarily run, but there might be an extra run in there in one of the other days. And then cycling, again, will be about 5 times a week. The only difference there might be if we're doing a focus bike block, maybe we've taken some intensity out of the running. So we're doing a bit of a focus bike block, where they might ride an extra day, so they're riding 6 times, but on the whole it'd be 5.
Great, so we focus a lot on swim, biking and running, but obviously strength training is a big aspect of triathlon and our training. How do you guys go about fitting that into your schedule?
So again, I think the simplest way that we go about that is just how we manage the load of the strength sessions and mainly focused around those key run sessions. So what we make sure is that they aren't on the same day. So it tends to be on a Monday and a Thursday with the key runs on the Tuesday and the Saturday. And just that's basically how we do it, so that they're not on the same day. They're almost like the high risk sessions, those key run sessions. If you go into them too fatigued off a strength session, or if you do them and then go into a strength session, it might just mean that you end up kind of putting yourself at risk a bit more off the back of them.
Right, well, that was really interesting from Reece, but to get a perspective of how the long distance pros train, we've now got Susie Cheatham's coach and husband, Rob Cheatham, in to chat to us. So Rob, how do you go about splitting Susie's training throughout the week?
So what we do, Mark, is it's a little bit more traditional probably to what the typical age group would be used to. We don't assign any particular training to a particular day of the week, but we do a pretty routine 5-5-5 type structure. Generally, the girls are going to be knocking out 5 of each a week. Sometimes if we're in a little bit of a focus block, we might do 6 bikes or 6 runs a week, sometimes at the detriment of one of the other disciplines, but pretty straightforward and pretty traditional 5-5-5 type session.
Yeah, so you don't follow like a Monday this, a Tuesday that, it changes each week?
Yeah, with full-time athletes, luckily you're not beholden onto having to fit your long stuff into weekends like an age grouper might have to do. But it does just so happen that generally Susie's long rides end up falling on the weekend still. Part of this is because of how we try to fit it into her actual race plan leading into a race and the taper. We like to get one last key run and bike session, probably something like 3 weeks before a race. So it just ties in that we tend to follow that pattern through the year.
Great. And do you have like focus sessions throughout the week, or is it just a matter of accumulating fatigue? How does it work?
Yeah, I think with the long distance guys, which is what I'm involved with, the big difference between what Reece does with his Olympic distance and shorter distance athletes is that we are just trying to very often just accumulate fatigue. It is literally just about getting the girls as smashed as you can for as long as you can, and then timing their fitness and their taper for their big races. So what Reece will notice with Susie, who swims in his squad, is that very often she'll tip up for a swim session, and she'll just be zombieing through a lot because the fatigue has been building for so long. So what we do try and do is me and Susie's bike coach, Matt Bottrell, will try to pull back on the biking so that she can have at least one good quality run session a week, a little bit of a confidence booster. And similarly, normally for a Friday swim, we'll try and give her a little bit of a pullback on the Thursday before so she can at least get into the pool once a week and actually knock out some confidence-inducing times.
Okay, so it's really interesting to hear from Reece about fitting in strength training around. How does it work for Susie with the long distance training?
Again, I think that strength is probably the one element which is receiving a lot more focus in the long distance game than it used to, and rightly so. I think probably some of the top girls at the moment on the circuit are those who are paying the best attention to quality strength program. But like the short distance girls, that is going to impede in the quality of your other sessions, so you have to time it properly. So routinely, Susie's going to do 3 quality strength sessions a week throughout the year, but I do like to pull back that strength gym work in the lead up to a race. So for us, we pull back quite heavily on the strength 4 to 5 weeks before. She's doing almost no strength 4 to 5 weeks before an A race.
And how do you go about fitting that in the week? Obviously, you've got so much other training going on. Do you weight the strength training over certain bike or run sessions, or do you just try and fit it all in?
Yeah, and again, people are doing it differently. I know there are top girls out there who are absolutely smashing the Olympic-style weightlifting, and it's paying dividends. We know that serious strength and weights for Susie impedes her training for up to 2 or 3 days after. So for us, it's normally just range of movement stuff. I've always said anything that gives you DOMS the next day, we try to avoid. So anything DOMS inducing, we avoid. It's really range of motion stuff and trying to get a half an hour of good range of motion, a lot of core, stuff like that.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Rob.
Well, I think we're going to have to continue to dream of being able to train full time, but still, that was a really interesting insight into how the pros actually split up their weekly training, and quite a lot of that we can relate as age groupers directly to our triathlon training.
Yeah, and of course, if you are part of a triathlon club, that's great, but you may find you're restricted to certain sessions at certain times. But how you fit in the rest of your training around that, it's entirely up to you, and of course the all-important recovery. And
I think by now you'll have realised when we've got it through that everyone is different. We've all got individual needs outside of our training, so you've got to just adapt to what works for you. And if you're using a coach, make sure that you're realistic with the hours that you can put forward, and when you really do require that flexibility, just go and speak to them.
Well, that's it for the show this week, but please do keep sending in your questions and any suggestions that you'd like us to delve into. You can send them in the comment section below or via Facebook. And if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to GTN by clicking on the globe. If you'd like to see one of our previous Triathlon Training Explained shows on a relatively topical overtraining and recovery, you can see that by clicking down here.
And if you're wondering how to fit all of this training into your week, well, we have made a video on how to train when you're limited for time, and that's just here.